saw something this morning that piqued my interest on Instagram. It looks like maybe people are getting hate for over-editing their photos or something like that. I'm not really sure. But basically I saw someone post on there that they're getting asked whether they're a photographer or an editor. And that raises some questions. I started out in photography using just a little Sony Cybershot point and shoot, shooting JPEGs, never editing. These were for memories. These weren't like photographs, these were memories. And at that point, editing just meant deleting the ones that I didn't want. And strictly speaking, that's what editing is. Years later, I upgraded to a camera that shot RAW, and so I had to bring processing into that. And processing is the act of making something that's not really an image into an image. And that basically just means turning raw data into a photograph. So you use something like Lightroom, like Photoshop, like I use Capture One now. And still quite simple. Along that route to photography, there was another thing that I did which I didn't really consider linked at the time. I was a big Photoshop nerd. I studied architecture, and so I did a lot of manipulations with my drawings, my CAD drawings, colorizing them, sort of downloading or stealing sort of photos that I then used as backdrops, you know, replacing the sky, things like that, adding texture to CAD models. Now, inevitably, at some point, these things all got mixed together, and I was not only taking pictures, but I was processing them. I was editing down the ones that I didn't want, taking out the ones that I didn't need, and then I was manipulating them with Photoshop. I was turning them into things that they were never meant to be. So where does that leave us? Well, I guess that brings me to what I do now. I do mostly video now, and in video you have shooting, obviously. You have editing, which is kind of compiling the clips, getting rid of the ones you don't want, things like that. And you have color grading, and then you have sort of VFX and things like that. So that's kind of analogous to where photography is. So shooting, obviously, that's the same. Editing, you know, getting rid of the clips that you don't want, or getting rid of the photos that you don't want, picking the best ones that tell the story. It can be a lot more involved when it comes to video, but it's still kind of the same thing. Then, of course, you've got color grading and manipulation. So people a lot of the time shoot raw or log footage now, which needs some sort of color grading correction. A lot of footage will need color correction. That's kind of like processing, just making sure making sure the exposure is correct, making sure the white balance is correct, that sort of thing. That's kind of similar to processing. But with photography, when you're processing stuff, you tend to make the colours look like you want them to look. I've started to hear that people are calling sort of colour and processing stuff in photography, they've started calling it colour grading, which is not wrong, but it's kind of a term from another medium. I think what I'm trying to say is that unless you take photographs and then just always give all of them photographs to the person that they're for, or you take photographs and let someone else delete them as necessary, you are a photographer editor. Look, even if you only shoot JPEGs, you don't delete anything, and then you keep everything, post it to Facebook, every single picture gets used. That's some sort of creative choice. Choosing to let the camera do the processing is in itself a choice. So as much as I'm kind of being pedantic with, you know, what the term editor means, what the term processing means, and what the term sort of photo manipulation means, it's one of those linguistic things that isn't important, but it kind of is. You know, it's like when you make fun of someone for using big words. Often those words exist because they are specific and they can do stuff with one word that it might otherwise take three. So because I'm a bit of an etymology nerd, I decided to look up what editor actually meant, its root and things like that. If you don't know what that means, it just means the language that it originally came from. So in this case, it comes from Latin, edere, which then turned to edit, which means produced or put out. And then from that we get editor, producer, or publisher. Which kind of goes against what you really think of when you think of what an editor does. Now we tend to think of an editor as someone who like manipulates the final image. Before that, you kind of thought of the editor as someone who selects and chooses what images are shown. And before that, it just meant the final person in the chain who put the images out. So like newspaper editor was the person who had the final say. I don't know if that really clears anything up, but I just thought it was interesting. Carry on. I hate to bring this into it, but back in the days of film, creative choices were much more clear cut. The choice of film, you used the thing that you picked before you actually took a shot was a creative choice. If you took that shot and let someone else develop it, that was a creative choice. If you took the time to process your own film, to develop it, to make prints from it, then you are able to get so much more out of it. And of course, in that process, you are bound to edit out some shots. Editing is the act of telling a story with images. That can be still images, and you can just be deleting the ones that you don't want and choosing the ones that tell the story the best. It isn't technically photo manipulation. I mean, it kind of is, I guess. So I don't usually do videos this off a cuff anymore. Usually I'm doing something at a specific event, or I'm sitting down, I'm really thinking about it, and I'm doing a proper studio setup. And I'm just wondering what you guys think about this, whether it's worth me doing more like these, just quick fire things that I've just thought about, or, something I've just seen on Instagram that's made me think. If it's something you guys enjoy, I don't know. I'm just on my way to do some work. I'm heading to do some sort of cooking, food styling. That's one of the ways I got into photography, was through food, and I really like to mix it up and not be the person shooting. So when my friend Lucy reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to do another food styling job, another sort of cooking job?" I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's go for it. And I really like being able to mix up the work that I do, on a kind of week-to-week basis, so I'm not getting bored. It's also the reason I'm able to kind of walk to where I'm going and be using the batteries in my camera and filling up memory space, because I don't have to do any shooting today, which is awesome. Okay, I'll catch you guys next time.